That's what they tell me. Oh.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the June 24th, 2019 meeting of the special call meeting of the Muskogee Re-Development Authority. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout. Here. Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Thank you. We're all here. Item 1, please.
Consider approval of minutes for the special call Muskogee Redevelopment Authority meeting of June 10, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 2.
Consider approval of amended resolution number 2770, creating the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board, amending membership from 9 to 11, establishing duties and authority, or take other necessary action.
Councilor Kale.
Yes, in discussing and visiting with some of my peers on the council, we thought it might be good to have the current, the earlier proposed membership of 9 increased to 11, which is the current membership. And I'd like to move that item forward.
I second that.
All right, is there any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 3.
Consider the appointment of John Newby to serve on the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes, I believe everybody on the municipal authority knows John Newby. He has served on the tourism board before and has served well there. I think the experience already being on tourism will help us quite a bit in moving forward on this tourism authority. So that would be my recommendation.
Second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes. And the motion carries. Item 4, Trustee Jamie Stout.
Consider the appointment of Brent Trout to serve on the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Okay. Brent is our executive director out at the Batfish at the Muskogee War Memorial Park, and so I think he will make a great asset to this board for tourism.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 5.
Consider the appointment of Jim Blair to serve on the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Hibbs.
Yes, this is my appointment of Jim Blair. He has been a former member of the Tourism Board, and I think he will bring a lot of knowledge to this board, and I'm pleased to have his name put in.
I second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 6.
Consider the appointment of Dr. John Winters to serve on the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Van.
Yes, this is my appointment. Mr. Winters, John Winters, I've known him quite a while, and he comes highly recommended. Matter of fact, we're our Parks Director. If you read his profile here, all the things that he's got, PhD, everything, he PhD'd up. And like I say, he's a really seriously, he is a very wonderful person. And like I say, matter of fact, he belongs to my church. Not only that, you know, and he knows me, so he's wonderful. But no, I recommend him highly. And Councilman Kell, I know he can second the motion too.
I'm going to second that. He's a fine man and a great choice, Ivory.
That's my recommendation.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 7.
Consider the appointment of Avery Fricks to serve on the Muskogee Re-Development Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Cale.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to, for everyone to consider the appointment of Mr. Fricks. He has the interest and I believe the insight to serve really well on this board. And with that, I would make a motion that we consider Avery Fricks.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 8.
Consider the appointment of Sue Harris to serve on the Muskogee Re-Development Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Yes. Sue Harris is my appointment on this board, and you all probably know she has quite a bit of tourism experience, and said that she felt a duty to come and help us anytime she could, because she had gotten a lot of education through her employment in tourism. So I recommend Sue Harris.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 9.
Consider the appointment of Kim Lynch to serve on the Muskogee Re-Development Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Derek Reed.
Thank you, Chairman. It is an honor that I present the name of Kim Lynch to this committee. I would recommend Kim Lynch. All of us are very proud of the decisions we are making as far as the choices we are putting on this board, and I bring the same passion in submitting this name, because I know in submitting this name, this is somebody that will be committed to the board. She will be dedicated to the board, as well as she's passionate about community service. A great lady that I would like to recommend for this position, Ms. Kim Lynch.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 10.
Consider the appointment of Russell Sane to serve on the Muskogee Re-Development Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Coleman.
This is my appointment of Russell Sane to the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board. Most recently, Mr. Sane was responsible for having put on the Crawfish Festival at the hangar here in Muskogee, which was a success. It gathered together vendors as well as people from around the county and elsewhere to the event. It was very successful. He has expressed an interest to continue to serve Muskogee in a greater capacity, and that would be my recommendation.
Second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 11.
Consider the appointment of Chris Sneed to serve on the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, or take other necessary action.
Trustee Hall.
Well, I've really excited about putting State Representative Chris Sneed on this board. We talked in depth about a lot of things that he would like to see happen, and he wanted to get more involved on a more local level since he's already involved at the state level. And maybe someday that those can combine and help us out a little bit with that state tourism dollars too. So I move that for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 12.
Consider the appointments of Heather Kane and Sarah Guile to serve on the Muskogee Re-Development Authority Tourism Board, subject to a term not to exceed 4 years, fulfilling appointments from the existing Chamber of Commerce Committee for Convention and Tourism Committee of the greater area as established by amended resolution number 2770, or take other necessary action, including but not limited to considering other nominations made from the floor.
Trustee Cale.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. These are both Heather and Sarah, former tourism members, and I'd like to see them move on with the new tourism board. Heather with a line towards the hotels, and Sarah, who's at the castle. I think both offer a lot of valuable insight as to what's going on in the community, and both ladies do a fine job as it is now. I think they're important additions to this overall group of the new Redevelopment Authority Tourism Board. I'd like to move that we consider their nominations as well.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 13.
Consider approval to accept the assignment of a contract between the Muskogee Chamber of Commerce and the City of Muskogee, including all amendments, for a period not to exceed 45 days, as well as approval to allocate funds as necessary in order to permit continuity of tourism services until a fiscal year 2020 budget is adopted as required by amended resolution 2770, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker.
Madam Chairwoman, as you all know, July 1 is the beginning of a new fiscal year, and June 30th is the end of the current fiscal year. And so the contract for tourism services between the City of Muskogee and the Chamber will end on June 30th if no prior action is taken. So as a preview for item number 14, which is a proposed new contract that staff was directed to work on, one of the provisions of the proposed contract is that the effective date not occur until the adoption of a fiscal year 2020 budget. And so in order to allow time for the newly established Muskogee Redevelopment Board to have a meeting and to review and recommend approval of a budget subject to the Redevelopment Authority's approval, we wanted to find a way that tourism services, as they are, could continue. And so what staff is proposing is that we accept an assignment from the City of Muskogee on the existing tourism contract between the City of Muskogee and the Greater Muskogee Area Chamber of Commerce for a period of 25 days, as well as allocate funding. So effectively what that would do is allow tourism to continue, though under the guise of under the authority of the Redevelopment Authority rather than the city. It would also allocate funding to continue those services for a period of 45 days. It is our hope that we will have a new budget that is adopted within that time period. If not, then the existing contract that we're asking to be assigned will cease unless further action is taken by the council. But that effectively sets a deadline for staff and the tourism board to be able to get that budget done and presented to you all, and to make sure that it is in accordance with what the wishes are. And so it is our recommendation that this this assignment be approved. And I'm happy to answer any questions. There's also a compendium item on the City Council agenda related to this as well.
Move for approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 14.
Consider approval of a tourism contract between the Redevelopment Authority and the Greater Muskogee Area Chamber of Commerce, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and trustees, you have before you the negotiated contract to this point with the Greater Muskogee Area Chamber of Commerce. This body tasked us with doing that, with staff to do that over the last few weeks. I got to give Mr. Tucker a tremendous amount of credit. He is now, I think, a certified tourism executive from all the work he's done on this. And so over this last period of time, we tried to put together an agreement that fit the direction that you gave us. More transparency, better enunciated goals for performance for the chamber or for our tourism contractor, and financial accountability. And so all those are in here. I'm going to go through the contract briefly and just point out some areas of change that are different from things, how we've done things in the past. I know you guys had a chance to look at this, but Section 1 kind of outlines in B and C just the general objectives, and that the MRA will receive an annual report that includes report on the objectives. As we look through to Section 5, we talk about the budgeting of funds and some of the financial accountability, including some things that have been recommended, that the money not expended at the end of the year comes back to the MRA, and that we have something that Roy touched on, which is in J, that this agreement won't be effective until the budget's adopted by the MRA in the future. Section 7, B and C have a couple of things specific on the financial reporting I wanted to draw your attention to as far as transparency, including original support documents such as receipts and copies of checks that will be available as the MRA board is asked and tasked with approving claims, and current monthly financial reports on Section 7D, talking about exactly what the MRA and the Tourism Board will have to look at every month as far as financials. Section 8, talking about the Tourism Board that you have just appointed this evening, elaborates on their duties, mainly managing the contract and coming up and deciding on what those measurables and deliverables are going to be, that we're going to set, that we know that those expectations are in place. They will get reports and manage the claims and the financial accountability. So there's important tasks that this group's been assigned to do. They'll also work on the performance reporting. Like we've talked about before, they'll know what standards are being held to as part of this process, and that'll be part of what the board is going to help determine. A couple other things I want to point out. In Section 11, we're going to talk about the compensation. So there's been some discussion in past years where the chamber had a management fee, and there was also some direct costs that were shared to the tourism budget for things like rent and overhead costs. And so some people thought that was kind of putting overhead in two different places. So this basically just puts it into one. All the costs for rent, landline telephones, internet, copier, printer leases, janitorial services, utilities, backup server maintenance fees, and the like. Anything that's kind of overhead costs is all covered by this fee, rather than laying it out separately. And then lastly, there's termination language in Section 14A says it's an automatically renewable contract if the MRA provides funding. That was the same as our existing current contract. And then Section B changes the termination time frame from 30-day notice to 90-day notice. I know that DJ Thompson's here with the chamber, and Mr. Tucker and I, and DJ can try and answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Miller and Mr. Tucker, the only question I had was under Section 3 on page 3, when it talks about the services performed. I'm wondering if there's no existing language that talks about destination tourism and marketing in the contract, if we can have just a small blurb that says including destination tourism and marketing. And the reason I'm asking that is because when we were going through this process, one of the things that kept coming up repeatedly was making certain that when we move forward with a new contract or a new agreement, that we at least had something in there that would try to shape the direction of tourism towards more destination tourism and marketing.
So I think you might find something like that in section 9B.
Okay.
Where the productivity, I skimmed over it, so forgive me, I should have spent more time on that part. 9B, it's on page 7, talks about the activity measures and performance indicators, and it references specific destination marketing association guidelines. It will be up to the tourism board what those actually are, but it does reference that direction. If we need further language, we certainly can, but we do have some in there.
That satisfies my question.
And to kind of tag to what Marlon was saying, on those performance, that scope of work, once the new tourism board puts that together and presents that, then that'll come back to the MRA to be will that kind of attach to the contract, or that will be a separate agreement?
It'll be part of the contract because it's referenced by that, but it will not, once it's adopted by the MRA Tourism Board, it wouldn't go any further.
Okay, that would just be the agreement between them and the chamber.
Yes, but they're the subordinate entity of you all, so you all exercise supervisory authority over the MRA Tourism Board.
Okay. Just wanted clarification.
Of course.
One other question right now, claims are being reviewed by the finance committee, by the council. Would those no longer come back to the council? They would all be reviewed by the trust, correct?
They would actually be approved by the Muskogee Redevelopment Tourism Board.
Okay.
Through the financial procedures that were adopted in the resolution, which does require that at every meeting all the claims be presented, and there's a provision in the contract that requires original support documents, receipts, copies of checks that are also presented to that board as part of the claims process. So, Trustee Johnson, if you think back to how the purchasing committee meets with the treasurer's office there to answer any questions when they see an item on that maybe someone is unfamiliar with, the process will be the same, except someone from the chamber, probably the tourism director, will be there with copies of receipts. So there's an item to approve a transfer or an expenditure of X number of dollars. The question comes up, what did that go to? The original documentation and or receipt will be available at the board so that they are fully informed. But if you also remember, one other thing I wanted to point out, in those financial procedures that were adopted in the resolution, if the tourism board requests information, further information or explanation, the manager, the executive director, who is the same person as the city manager, will of course investigate that claim. If the claim is ultimately disallowed, then you all may remember there's a provision which means we convene a meeting of the MRA to discuss it and decide how we want to proceed with that disapproved claim. So we did include those provisions within the original resolution which established the board and which is referenced by the contract.
So that would be at the board level, and then if it needed to, it would come back to the redevelopment authority.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And Mr. Tucker, we would get copies of those claims as a redevelopment authority. Is that correct?
We will send them out to you. You won't process them at a meeting because you all meet a special call.
Right.
But yes, we can make sure that you get a copy of all those as well.
That's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Anything else that we want to talk about, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
I do want to add one other thing. If this is approved by the MRA, please note that it has not yet been approved by the Board of the Chamber of Commerce, so it will be subject to their approval as well. So when you've got, of course, two parties to a contract, both of them have to approve it. This is our preliminary review, and I think that DJ said you have a board meeting tomorrow to take this item up. So hopefully by the end of tomorrow, we should have an answer and be able to circulate this for execution if it is approved.
Okay. Anything further? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries, and that concludes the meeting of the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority, and we will go directly into the meeting of June 24th of the Muskogee City Councilor. If you will please stand for the invocation by Councilor Coleman, followed by the flag salute.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this opportunity to serve the residents that we have been elected to do so. Father, we pray your blessing upon us with the wisdom from the Holy Spirit, that whatever we do on this day and days going forward, that it be for the betterment of your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sure you all have had time to check over the minutes of the, gotta have the roll call
Mayor Janie Boydston,
here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We're all here. And then we will get to the matter of the minutes of the City Council regular session of June 10, 2019, special call sessions on May 20, 2019, and June 3, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Then we will talk about the consent agenda. Has everybody looked it over, and what do you think?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 12.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of Ordinance 4072A, rezoning the property located at 105 North York Street, more particularly described in the ordinance, from R1 Single Family Residential to C1 Local Commercial, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Yes, and we will open up the
Public hearing.
public hearing. Ms. Callahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. This is a request from the current owners, new owners, Mike and Mike LLC, and the agent submitted the request, Interstate Properties. It's a request to rezone 105 North York from the R1 single family to the C1 local commercial. The reasoning for the rezoning request is to expand the parking lot. This is the site. The building is 105 North York, but the area requesting for zoning is to the west of the building. The area proposed is shown that's currently being used as a temporary parking lot, and it is currently zoned R1 single family. The front building to the east of that is currently zoned the C1 local commercial. To the north and to the northeast are zoned C1 local commercial, and it's the Senior Lopez restaurant. To the south is zoned C1 local commercial, but it is currently a single family home. To the east is zone C2 general commercial, it's a Chicken Express, and then to the north of that is zoned C1 local commercial, and it is a vacant lot. To the west is the single family home, it's zoned R1 single family residential. The C1 local commercial district does comply with the comprehensive land use map, and Planning Commission, Public Works recommend approval, and staff. Happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Don't get in
A little early.
a hurry.
Or-
Yes, no one has signed up to speak to this matter, so we will close the public hearing, and then we will hear from the council.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydson.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 13, please.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance 4073A, rezoning the property located along Orchard Parkway that is within the Orchard Park 3 addition, more particularly described in the ordinance from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Two Family Residential, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Okay, no one has signed up to speak to this, so we will open the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, oops, too fast. A request from Don Younger, the owner, and he is the applicant. It's the request to rezone 3 lots that are along the Orchard Parkway that are within the Orchard Park addition. They're requesting to rezone from the R1 single family to R2 two family for the proposed development of duplexes. This is the current site. It is the 3 lots that are at the south end of the Orchard Parkway before it turns into a cul-de-sac. Sorry, it's hard to see on the screen. And this is the property as it's facing west. It's currently zoned R1 single family residential and is vacant. To the north is R1 single family residential. There are single family homes. To the south and southwest is zoned R1 single family residential. There's single family homes. And then to the west is R4 multifamily residential, and there is a 6-plex currently. To the east is zoned R1 single family residential. There are single family homes. And then to the northeast, it's R1 single family residential, and there's single family homes. To the west is zoned RA. Directly west is RA, which is a residential agriculture. And then farther west is the R4 multifamily residential. It's vacant land, and there are proposed duplexes. R2 two-family residential does comply with the comprehensive land use map, and staff, Planning Commission, and Public Works have recommended approval. The applicant is here to address any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Then we will close the public hearing and see what these fine people have to say about this.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 14.
Discuss the process for nomination of citizens to the City of Muskogee Foundation Board and board committees.
Yes, as you all know, we are very fortunate to have the City of Muskogee Foundation. And it has come to pass that there are 3 seats available on there. One has to be a city council person to take up my spot when I was promoted to mayor. And I understand Councilor Reed has nominated Councilor Van to serve on that spot, and we're fixing to vote on that in just a few minutes. The other 2 spaces are available to people in the community. And since I hear opinions all the time about what the foundation ought to be doing, then I think some of the people with the opinions may want to make an application to be on this board and go where they can be heard. There is an application for this on the City of Muskogee Foundation board, which you can find. You can't be the council appointee, but there are 2 other board positions, plus there are several committees. And the application for those is on the City of Muskogee Foundation also. So I would suggest that people who want to do more than talk find those applications, fill them out, and turn them in.
Do we second that now?
We have Mr. Frank Merrick in the audience, and if you have any question about any of this, I'm sure he would be able to answer them. But we don't need any action on this. You're just encouraged to take part. Anybody want to say anything else about that?
think that was pretty clear.
Okay. All righty. Then we will go to item 15.
Consider approval of a professional services agreement with Betty Other Williams to provide representation for the City of Muskogee in 4 inverse condemnation lawsuits filed in Muskogee County District Court, styled England v. City of Muskogee, case number CV 200720, Lacey v. City of Muskogee, case number CV 20071377, Taft v. City of Muskogee, case number CJ 20071410, Vaughn v. City of Muskogee, case number CJ 20071371, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker.
Mayor, members of the council, this is was brought to you at the Public Works meeting last week as a renewal of our existing legal services agreement with Ms. Williams. She's provided representation in these cases since about 2008. And as you all may remember, this has been a long and ongoing litigation suit involving inverse condemnation. And so we're proposing to continue Ms. Williams' services for another year. We have been pleased with what she's provided us. We are in the process of scheduling an update on that litigation. I think our last one was in January, so it's about time to have another one. But there has been no update or no changes to the proposed contract for her services. With that, I do recommend approval, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Tucker, the question I have is I want to be sure I'm clear that in the event that we do lose these cases, we will owe the judgment plus interest.
That is not appropriate necessarily for this item, but
Okay.
the short answer is that's a maybe.
Okay.
That's something we can talk about when we do the item.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Tucker, when we get an update, and I know we've had some information about what the process has been, if maybe Ms. Williams could provide to the council a short sheet of what the process has been and the potential outcomes, that would be really helpful during that update.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, then, what is your pleasure?
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
No.
Ivory Van.
No.
Derek Reed.
No.
Dan Hall.
No.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes,
The motion passes.
and the motion passes. Item 16.
Consider the appointment of Councilor Marlon Coleman to the Airport Board to fill the unexpired term of Bob Coburn beginning June 24, 2019 and ending on November 30, 2019, or take other necessary action.
Councilor Coleman.
I had the opportunity recently to visit the airport and was so impressed with what they were doing. And I thought to myself it would be a nice idea to learn more about the inner workings of it. And since this is an unexpired term, I was more eager to do it at this time, and I would recommend approval.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Councilman Coleman, you realize to get on this board, you got to go up and fly in a biplane upside down for a while, right?
I'll take you with me.
I've already been. It's
Yeah.
your turn.
Yeah.
Really, the only thing we're required is to listen to these jokes.
Listen to you.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any legitimate conversation about this?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
On this airport board, Reverend Coleman going to the airport board, so that means we have 2 people of color on this board?
You do, and you have some Native Americans on there and everything else. I'd probably say that I'm probably the only Caucasian, Yone, whatever you want to say, on that board.
Just checking.
Just to let you know, Ivory.
Just checking. You know, I got to check.
You know, there is multiple races out there, so
see.
we're covered.
All right.
All right.
Turn the floor back over to you, Miss Mayor.
Okay, y'all finished?
You done?
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 17.
Consider the appointment of Counselor Ivory Van to the City of Muskogee Foundation Board to fill the unexpired term of Janie Boydston, beginning June 24, 2019, and ending on July 31, 2020, or take other necessary action.
Counselor Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. In trying to find a replacement for such a great member of this committee, Miss Janie Boydston, I'm not available, so the best I could come up with is Ivory Van. But on a serious note, the foundation has a statement, mission statement, making a real difference. And anybody that knows Ivory Van, he lives and breathes to make Muskogee a better place. And I believe that he would make a great member to the foundation board. And so it is my honor to recommend a great gentleman for this position, Mr. Ivory Van.
Second.
Discussion?
May I be recognized, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go right ahead.
I'd like to thank you for that accolade, Mr. Reed, and like I say, I'll do my very best to do the best job I can on this foundation board, because I know Mr. Merritt is looking at me right now saying this, and it'll be an honor to work with the City Foundation. And thank you, Ms. Boydston. I know, me and you always joking around, but like I say, I do try to do my best. That's all I can say.
Well, if you're going to take my place, it'll take that.
And I get in trouble for jokes.
Well, thank you,
Really,
thank you very much.
I
I'll
don't
turn the
believe
floor.
that's a joke. I don't think anybody can take Ms. Boyston's
Well, I was trying to
place.
get it there.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 18.
Consider approval for matching grant funds for the Roxy Theater Community Trust totaling $25,000 or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, you have before you a request from the Roxy Trust. They voted on this earlier this month. We had an agreement with the Roxy as part of their budget request this past year that if they raised additional money, that we would try and match that from the matching grant fund. I knew that obviously that's up to you guys, but I told them I'd bring it to them. They were very successful through their Movie Hall of Fame this year and raised this additional $25,000. And I think this is a success, and so we do recommend approval of this matching, this expenditure from the matching grant fund. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval?
Second.
Discussion? Questions?
I'd like to say that, boy, it's sure pleasant to see opportunities to match funds, and when that opportunity arises, other than full funding, I appreciate their efforts in raising money, and I'm happy to vote in favor of matching those funds.
Okay, anything else? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 19.
Consider approval to assign the contract between the Muskogee Chamber of Commerce and the City of Muskogee to the Muskogee Re-Development Authority, including all amendments, for a period not to exceed 45 days in order to permit continuity of tourism services until the authority adopts a fiscal year 2020 budget or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, so all the stuff we did in the redevelopment authority, this is the requirement from the council to send that contract to the MRA to allow all that to happen. So if there's any questions, we'll be happy to address it, but that's what this agenda item is for.
Move for approval?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. That brings us to the part of our meeting where we recognize citizens wishing to speak to the mayor and council. We've had two people sign up. The first one is Linda Bayless. And Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Boyd, City Council. My name is Linda Bayless. I live at 4 Beckman Drive here in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I'm here tonight representing myself and many senior citizens who you see sitting in this room and many others who couldn't be here tonight. We have heard that the grant for the remodel of Station Number 3 has been approved. And we would publicly like to thank the City of Muskogee Foundation for this approval. We have been included in many previous meetings with some council members concerning this matter, and we just want to let everyone know that we would like to continue to be heard, so any future meetings by the Parks Department, any planning that's being done, we would like our input to continue to be heard. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. The other person asking to be heard is Dwayne Hall. Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name's Dwayne Hall. I live at 3 Leathers Lane here in Muskogee. I'm a vet. I have PTSD. The issue that I have is that the City Council, or the city, has an ordinance that says fireworks will not be set off except from June 24th through 4th of July, or 5th of July, from 9 a.m. I think until 11 p.m. On the first weekend in June, fireworks were set off in Arnold Heights Park. That affects me. It affects every single person that has PTSD of my statute with being in war, the VA hospital as well. I would like to see something put into effect that would have anybody that's requesting to set off fireworks put a notice in the paper and in everything that the city actually has for Facebook. I know you all have many different ways that you put out your information, at least a 2-week notification so that we can kind of prepare ourselves, because mentally I have to prepare for 4th of July. I know they're coming, I know they're going to be there, but I have to mentally prepare myself. So that is my request, is that something be put into effect that helps us as vets and helps the community know, hey, there will be fireworks at some of these events that are going off. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll go to item 20.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Chris Bridges, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. B, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Brandon Page, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. C, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local Number 57, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. D, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 95, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. E, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss negotiations with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local Number 2465, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. We ask that you excuse us, please, while we go into executive session. And we're back. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here?
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Mr. Tucker.
Item 20A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Chris Bridges. After being briefed on the status of that claim and attempts to settle, I believe an appropriate motion would be to authorize the city attorney to settle the claim of Mr. Bridges in the amount discussed in executive session.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed. Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 2.
Item 20B, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, again, the City Council convened an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Brandon Page. After being briefed on the status of that claim, as well as attempts to settle, I believe an appropriate motion would be to authorize the city attorney to settle the claim of Brandon Bridges in the amount discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item 20C, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss ongoing negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local Number 57. After being briefed on the status of ongoing negotiations, the Council has determined that it be appropriate to approve an MOU between the International Association of Firefighters, Local Number 57, carrying over provisions of the current CBA until the earlier of 1, adoption of a new CBA for fiscal year ending in 2020, or June 30th, 2020.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item 20D, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss ongoing negotiations with Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 95. After being briefed on the status of those negotiations, it appears that it would be appropriate to approve an MOU between the FOP, Lodge Number 95, carrying over provisions of the current collective bargaining agreement until the earlier of 1, the adoption of a new CBA for fiscal year ending 2020, or 2, June 30th, 2020.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Number 20E, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss ongoing negotiations with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local Number 2465. After being briefed on the status of those ongoing negotiations, it appears to be appropriate to approve an MOU between AFSCME Local 2465, carrying over provisions of the current collective bargaining agreement until the earlier of 1, the adoption of a new collective bargaining agreement for fiscal year ending 2020, or June 30th, 2020.
So move approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carried. That concludes our agenda, and we are adjourned.